Hello and welcome. I'm here today with the founder of the socially conscious fine art advisory firm, Curaty. And today we're going to have a very candid conversation about workplace and art. So, Sneha, I'd love to know a little bit about what your thoughts are in linking design and art and workspace. I mean, there are lots of misconceptions when we think about whether there's a place for art in the workspace, but can we talk through some of what those misconceptions are?
Of course. So, very often you see in workspaces that art comes in, usually picked by like the C-suite or like the owner of the company, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe it's been inherited over generations. Um, and sometimes it's just kind of left across the workspace. Maybe the workspace has been done over by an interior designer, right? But the art curation element often comes in more as an aesthetic choice versus as like more of like an intentional decision.
Yeah.
Now, when we go to workspaces, right, we have to realize that we're there for like almost 8 hours of our day, long hours, and it's kind of like most of our lives.
Yeah.
Our productivity, our mental health, all of that is very much tied into that space.
Yeah.
We want to feel like we belong, right? So in the pandemic was that when we worked from home, there was a shift. Suddenly, people preferred that over coming into work. Why is that? You see, like as humans, we tend to be very territorial. If you think about it, in a workspace, the first thing we will do is we'll come in and we'll put a mug on the table. We'll put our jacket on our chair. We'll want to mark our space because we want people to know, hey, we exist. This is ours, right?
Exactly.
In the art decision-making process, if you don't get the employees involved, if the art just happens to be there, that can be quite disconnecting because if as a company you say that you want people to belong there, but yet the artwork doesn't show that. Art has such a subtle cue because it can really impact your behavior as well, right?
Yeah.
In a space.
And productivity, which obviously we need when we're working. Then what would you say to those who think that maybe it could come across as a distraction to that?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that's because distraction happens when art's unintentionally curated.
True.
You have to remember that in an area where you want to focus, really deeply on your work,
Yeah.
the kind of art that you choose in such a space has to be a bit more meditative. You won't use jarring colors like orange and yellow, right? You'd want to use more subtler colors. You want to think more baby blues,
Yeah.
more Zen style concepts. You know, if I have to name some artists, you want to think Rothko, right? Super minimal, gives you the right tone and atmosphere, but doesn't really disrupt your workflow.
Yeah. Like what things should be considered when you decide to have art in your workspace? Like, for example, scale and logistics, all that kind of stuff that could be seen as a hassle. But how would you, for example, take the lead into making that whole process a lot easier for someone?
Of course. So at Curaty, like we deeply follow a design thinking approach to curation. For us, everything comes down to who's using the space, what is the journey of the artwork, and why does it really exist in the space? Because I completely agree, right? We don't want to curate art that's a distraction. We want art to be there to empower people, to inspire, to engage, right?
Yeah.
To really uplift their lives.
Exactly.
So to create something like that, first thing that we do is we really try to understand who it is, the employees, what they're passionate about, how they're going to be using that space. And then we'll start taking them on a journey through the curatorial process. For us, it's really important to have your teams involved in the curatorial process.
For sure.
Because that's how we know that we're communicating to the culture, right?
Exactly.
That we're creating that culture of belonging, that the art connects the values of the company as well. Maybe, what we've done with one of our projects, right, that I love is that every employee thought about a key stakeholder that either they were having an issue with or that's really important to the business, but they often forget. And we start picking artworks that represent that key stakeholder, right? So when they walk into the office every day, that artwork becomes like a visual reminder cue behind the company, who matters to the company. And that's what art needs to be in a space. It needs to be personal, it needs to be fun, it also needs to work and help people focus, right?
Yeah.
So these different curatorial elements that have to come to play, which is why I generally would always say, like, that's where the art advisor comes in. This is literally our bread and butter. It's what we do day and night. You know, at our firm, we've really researched deeply into the psychology of well-being, how colors affect our mental health, what textures put us in a relaxed state of mind.
And that's so needed, especially when you've got like tasks on top of tasks and you just want to have a bit of a break of like all of that and just look at something that has nothing to do with what you're doing and just take that minute. Okay, what would you say are your complete don'ts when it comes to curating art in a workspace? What are the absolute no's?
Oh gosh, I'm so glad you asked me that question. Okay, so the first one would be never choose art that matches your brand color just for the sake of it, right? Sometimes you can have, like, let's say if orange is your brand color, it might be energetic and it works. You can pick it for a space, but having that across your workspace is a big no-no. Don't just buy posters and prints because you think they look good, right? Keep an open perspective. Really think about what would work for everybody, especially if you're the key decision maker. Sometimes you might pick artworks that can be obstacles. You don't want artworks that are too big for a small enclosed space. Be considerate about certain meeting rooms. Really think about how scale impacts the space as well. Then I would really also recommend thinking about materials. Now, if you remember, certain materials like oil paints do have a smell. So putting an oil painting in a compact meeting room could actually be really toxic within that space. Really pick artworks that actually do make you feel good, right? Yeah.
We don't want the opposite.
We don't want the opposite.
Bringing in a sense of peace, it's bringing in a sense of, positivity. I think if we implement those logistics when we think about picking the works, it will allow us to actually have works that just work in the space and look good and make people feel good. So to conclude, what would you say the final takeaway should be?
First, don't pick art that matches your brand color. Second, when you're picking art, be intuitive about how people in your space are going to engage with it and use it. Think about the location of where you are. How can that be part of the story? And honestly, have fun with it. Art can be such a beautiful journey to include in a workspace. Exactly. It can really bring a community to life. Don't make it a task. Make it a fun project. Make it something where your team gets a chance to get together and actually build something together, right? Because collecting is such a therapeutic journey. Maybe it can heal team quarrels, create a whole new workspace.
For sure.
And, really open up the creative possibilities for the team as well, right?
Keep them inspired.
Exactly.
Keep them going.
Exactly.
And so that wraps it all up. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you took away a lot of inspiration for your next project. Thank you so much, Neha.
Thank you. And please subscribe and continue to watch. Bye.